If you're ready to take back control of your health, you're in the right place. Welcome to Awaken Wellness with me, Tanya Candee, registered nurse and health coach. Now, I'm not your typical nurse. I consider myself divorced from traditional healthcare. I broke free of the sick care system in 2019 when I realized that the root cause to my sickness, my autoimmune disease, and my chronic pain was me. If you're ready for truth, for clarity, for honesty in a tough, love, compassionate way, I'm the coach for you. Join me while we dig into our root causes of sickness and disease. Hello. It is Nurse Tanya, and this is October 16th. So, October is always Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It's also my birthday. My birthday is on the 20th. So, October for me is always a good month to draw some blood, do some labs, and see where you're at. And I like that. I like using the month of your birthday as an anniversary to do these things. I think it's really a good idea. So for myself, I drew some blood this morning and sent it off. I use a lab company in Florida. They're called Access Medical Labs, and I didn't draw my like estrogen hormones, but I did my thyroid. I have got a history of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So many people are familiar with that, with what that means. The medical community calls autoimmune disease or defines autoimmune disease a little bit differently than I do. They would, in simple terms, say that your body is attacking itself. And I would, in simple terms, say that your body is desperately trying to protect itself from something that should not be in there, right? So when you look at it that way, it brings us to a more root cause perspective. So we want to know what is in. I'm going to use this myself a lot during this discussion as a gauge. I am going to a little ways in, I'm going to show you some of my lab results. They're from a couple years ago. And because it is my birthday month and because I have not retested, I'm going to do that as well. And that's a Dutch test. I'll show you a little bit of what I had going on in my Dutch test a few years ago. And then it takes a little while to get those results back. So in a few months, when I get the results back on a group coaching live, I can show you what's different. I hope there's a lot different because I had some goofy things going on in my test for sure. So it's the body will heal itself when we remove what is not supposed to be in there and replenish what is missing. We always want to try to use food as medicine. And unfortunately, that gets more and more complicated and nearly impossible as the years go by. Things that are getting in our way are depleted soil. Soil is depleted of carbon. Farming practices, GMO, genetically modified organisms, even our organic producers struggle because if the farmer next to you is not organic and you're all in the same water system, you have, the clouds and the pollution and the everything that just falls from the sky. Most of us, you can't grow in a completely protected greenhouse and use filtered water and all those things. So it's hard. And sometimes it's hard then even when we want to grow our own food during that growing season. And then the bugs come in and the pestilence comes in, and pretty soon the weeds and everything else, pretty soon we're growing our own food and we don't even think anything about it, and we're out there with the chemical fertilizer or the chemical bug killer, or we don't have anything left of we don't have anything to harvest, right? So it's all super complicated, and it's just like we're in a pickle. So I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer, by any means. It's just being realistic, right? So we can't be caught up in a state of perfectionism, waiting for everything to be perfect before we try to do things better for our health. It just doesn't work. So let's go back to that autoimmune thing, right? Where the medical community says your body is attacking itself. And I say, no, your body is trying to defend itself. So I'm not organized to like show you guys my thyroid labs. I could, if anybody's interested in that, I can always post that in the comments later on, so you can kind of see like my perspective on what I'm looking for in thyroid. Well, if you give me a second, I might be able to screen share just a little tool that I use. I might be able to screen share that easy enough. Or should I take the time? I don't know to do it. I can kind of talk while I look. What's the easiest way to do that? I use Canva to create everything. Yeah, and I just recently printed that off, so I can bring that up fast enough on Canva. It's a really neat little tool here. Where did it go? I'm gonna close that so I can make that a little bit bigger. Okay, I am going to just go ahead and quickly screen share that with you. Um, Sorry, now it's playing cruel tricks on me. Okay, let me get there and I'll bring it up so I can talk and work at the same time. So the thyroid, so we, an autoimmune disease, I just want to show you how I see that a little bit differently than what the medical community does. So I was trained by the Wellness Way, and we look at things a little bit differently. And I really like the training that I got from them on the thyroid. So when we run a thyroid, we want to know everything about it. We don't want to just know the TSH. The TSH comes from the brain. So that's why I put it up here towards the top of this. Then your T4, in the background, there is a picture of a thyroid. The T4 is what your thyroid is making. And then the T3, the usable hormone down here, is after it's been converted, mostly in your liver, and that is what's usable. So when we look at the thyroid, we need to know a few things. We need to know, what are you making that is here? Is your brain communicating? The TSH is your brain, being the shot caller, the communication pathways that says, hey, we need to make more or we need to make less. That happens in that area of your glands in your brain, right? So then once it is converted, we either get, medically speaking, for sure, they are not very apt to give you a measurement of this reverse T3. So reverse T3 is the opposite of the good usable T3. So we might measure your total T3, we might measure your free T3. When we measure the frees, T4, whoops, I don't want to move that, or T3, T4 or T3, that tells us what's left over. Like if you have a bunch of it left over, then that means your body's not using it. You have it, but your cells aren't sensitive to it. Your body doesn't know what to do with it. So on this little graph, I've got reasons why things might not be working, right? So let's say you went to the doctor, they said all your labs are fine. Your thyroid labs are fine. Mine are always fine. These numbers are always fine. But these numbers down here, my immunoglobulins and my peroxidase, those are off the charts. And that's where that autoimmune component comes in. That is saying that there's an antibody reaction. My body is building antibodies to the thyroid tissue, which totally isn't good. Mine will be super high. The last time I checked it, I just sent blood in today, but the last time I checked it, it was 3,000 and some, which is super high. But the rest of my numbers are fine. So if I was just to go to a regular doctor, I don't know why you have to beg and plead for years saying that you don't feel fine when your TSH is fine and your T3 is fine and your T4 is fine, but you don't feel fine. So when your antibodies are up like that, you can still have a lot of low thyroid or high thyroid symptoms, but your body is still at a point where it's dealing with it. Like it hasn't manifested into these abnormal lab values. And we have to keep in mind that these lab values are an average of people, right? We still, when you start to know your labs, you might know that when your numbers get to a certain point, it doesn't matter if that's still in the average normal, it's not good for you. So some of these factors, like this box says, that contribute to proper thyroid production are iron, iodine, zinc, tyrosine, selenium, vitamin E, vitamin B, D, and C. So those are what your body needs to make hormone, right? So this reverse hormone is an important one to know if what that number is. If your body's making the opposite, and that is start to getting up in even the teens, that is a red flag that your liver is really needing some work, is needing some detox work. So in this box tells you factors that increase that conversion of your T4 to the reverse, the opposite, what we don't want: stress, trauma, too low of calorie diet, inflammation, toxins, infection, liver and kidney dysfunction, and certain medications and vaccines. So those are things, are clues, those are things that we can do to improve that thyroid conversion. We lower inflammation, we open up our liver, we work on detoxification, right? And then these are other things. So these are factors that increase the conversion of T4 to T3. So we all need that. We all probably could use a little help, but sometimes we will have a really nice T4 number, but the T3 is lower than average or lower than it should be. So then we want to look at the diet. Do we have enough selenium? Do we have enough iron? Do we have enough zinc? Do we make enough glutathione? So all those things. And if there is a problem, like here, this box tell us that production, like if you're not producing T4, these are issues, things that we want to look at: stress, infection, trauma, radiation, medications, fluoride, bromide, chloride, toxins, pesticides, mercury, cadmium, lead, autoimmune disease, leaky gut, sodium levels, mineral deficiencies. All of that, if we have a low number of T4, that's all important. So that is a really nice little tool that I use. And then, we plug in your results. So we apply this principle to you. Let's see. So I wanted to share that. For me, like I say, I just keep going through life. Sometimes I will have some of those low symptom thyroid symptoms. Like it's super hard for me to lose weight. It definitely is. So autoimmune disease, my body is not trying to hurt itself. My body is trying to protect itself. And when we're talking about thyroid, For me, I didn't know I had mono or Epstein-Barr virus until I started looking for root causes, until I ran a blood panel that tells us what our titers are to all these viruses. And there mine was activated and larger than life. Epstein-Barr can be super hard to manage. Um, and I absolutely believe that it's not me that's the host of the Epstein-Barr, it's a parasite. So that is when the parasite detox becomes super important. And we want to reduce our pathogen load so then our immune system has got less to worry about and it can take care of the body. If there's such a heavy parasite load, pathogen load, then the immune system all day, every day has your mitochondria hijacked trying to take care of pathogens that you don't have enough mitochondrial efficiency to make energy. So people with chronic fatigue are more than likely full of parasites and pathogens. People with autoimmune disease, people who have cancer are more than likely full of pathogens and parasites, heavy metals, toxins, all of that stuff. And that stuff, that negative stuff, hijacks your immune system. So your immune system can't take care of little rogue cells that aren't behaving right. You know what I mean? And then they develop into dis-ease in our body, no matter what that dis-ease looks like. It's from something that's internally going on. Our bodies are simply an expression of the environment in which we expose them to, right? The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food, the toxins we take in, those are, our body is only a product of that environment. So we have to work harder every day, every single day. We have to work harder to live clean, to reduce our toxin exposure. Honestly, it becomes a full-time job. Um, that is where I will always be thankful for my supplement support, for those things. Knowing what we know when we start to be aware of all of these things that are coming against us and coming against our body, we could easily get into a place of fear, like where you're afraid to tap water, or you're afraid to eat anything, or you're afraid to go anywhere, you're afraid to travel because of all the things that you'll be exposed to. And we absolutely cannot do that. We cannot get trapped in a state of fear. One, that's really bad for your health. So we have to have faith, but we also have to have a sense of responsibility and to do what we can to mitigate these things. When we were going through that scare 4 years ago, when everybody was just wanting to super sanitize everything, use all the hand sanitizer, super sanitize things, you know, that itself has repercussions years down the road. One, the chemical exposure is terrible. Those chemicals, like even in bleach wipes, are so bad for us. They absorb through your skin. They're 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 just terrible. We were not made to live in a sterile environment. We need microbes, we need good bacteria, we need bad bacteria. To a certain extent, our body needs even a little parasites, but you just don't want the parasites to be the shot caller. You don't want the bad bacteria to be in charge. Just like take your microbiome. Everybody has got the good and bad bacteria. The bad bacteria, if they are like, there's different levels of bad bacteria, just to stay like shallow, non-specific. But even things like C. diff, right? A lot of people have heard of C. diff. When it is running rampant in your body, it's a really bad, scary diarrhea that a person gets that can be life-threatening. It absolutely can be, because a person can get so dehydrated. Well, that is something that lives in our microbiome. And if it's in balance, if everything's in check, if that's not the shot caller, then you're okay. But so when something happens, like with antibiotic use or some other reason, and those microbes get out of balance, like, so your beneficial bacteria are destroyed, and this bad bacteria gets to be in charge, then things get out of balance, and the body can get frail fast when things are out of balance. So I kind of started off saying we were going to talk about breast cancer prevention, and you might not hear me saying that, but we are. All of these things are important to that thing, right? So, in my opinion, most of those things, your hormones, your estrogens in that case, are made out to be the bad guy. But in my opinion, they're not really the bad guy. And they're not really the root cause. The root cause is imbalance in the immune system, imbalance in the liver. It's the toxins that the body couldn't process, that got trapped, then led to cell mutation, led to things being destroyed, things not working correctly. But in most cases, I don't really think the hormone is the bad guy. So I am going to show you guys. I talked a little bit earlier about a test that we can do. Functional practitioners use it. If you talk to a regular doctor and ask them about it, they might have heard of it, but it's not something that they generally order. It is to see what the function is, and we do it with urine. I'm primarily just going to talk about that hormone side of it. We can add saliva, which is the cortisol or the stress side of it, but we're just going to kind of talk about the hormone side. So when we want to know, like really, really early on, what is going on with the function of our body, if our body is functioning optimally, or health, the health, like we're looking from a different perspective. We're looking for a perspective that's not looking to prescribe medication, is not looking for a diagnosis code or that. We're just looking at function. How is your body functioning? So, like I said, when I started all of this, I have some known thyroid issues, which, it's all part of it. Our body's like a Swiss watch. Dr. Patrick Flynn, he taught us that in the Wellness Way Academy. And I absolutely 100% agree with that. A Swiss watch, the middle is the nervous system, and then all of your gears around the outside. So, like, if I went to a thyroid specialist or an endocrinologist for my thyroid problem, and they started tweaking on my thyroid, it would affect everything else. It would affect my liver. It would affect all of your other symptoms. So our body, we have to look at it as a big picture, as a whole. I'm going to go ahead and screen share and show you this Dutch test. So another really important test is a stool test, and not a colonoscopy. I'm sure they have some benefit, especially in an emergent situation, if you need to know what's on fire, for sure. But even a colonoscopy, if you're thinking of that as a screening for cancer, well, by the time they find a problem there, you have a really big problem. And yeah, I still don't understand. There's no way they don't see parasites. I still don't understand why nobody talks about that. I don't get it. There too, in my late 20s, I had I guess it was a GI bleed. All they did was call it gastritis, so itis, leaking, or inflammation in my gastric mucosa, and put me on proton pump inhibitors for 15 years. And oof, boy, that's another story. That's another live altogether. But I had a colonoscopy and it was full of parasites at the time. I had to have been. And well, they don't say anything about it. They just put you on medication and send you home. They don't say, hey, what are you eating? What is your stress level like? So anyway, that's neither here nor there. And it's just a different theory. I don't mean to dog on that. So always say, if you're having a fire, if you're having an emergency, get to a fireman, a medical doctor. If you're looking to rebuild or just be in a better state of wellness, then a carpenter, like people like me, I was trained by the Wellness Way Academy, and that's I love Dr. Flynn's carpenter and fireman analogy. It just works. So from a carpenter's perspective, when I first did my Dutch test, and I do need to redo this. It's a couple years old. I knew that my liver was struggling like years ago. I totally knew it. Never, ever once did I have elevated enzymes on blood work. Never. None of my labs have ever looked funny or looked abnormal. Did I feel normal? Hell no, I did not feel normal. So I'm in that crowd, probably just like you. And that cool thing I can do too, I can run any of your blood work. Like I pulled a ton of blood on myself. And when I get those results, I will plug them into a really neat software program that I pay a pretty penny for. I will plug them in and it will give me a functional analysis of how to support my body. And then I have to decide. So that report, I do love that, and it will point me towards supplements that will support my function, like off my labs. But there too, I don't want to get too tied up in that because that's just giving a supplement to support my symptoms. That's in a way that's no better than medication, right? So I still, when I get that report back, I still want to get deeper to the root cause. I want to, again, it's probably going to be detoxification and parasite cleanse. We got to clean ourselves. We've got to clean our livers. Our liver, so even sunburn, if we have a clean liver, we don't sunburn. Like whole nother video, whole nother story. But what causes us to sunburn is bad oils and the toxins in our body. The sun, in my opinion, it does not cause cancer. It's in you. It's those foods, those things in you, right? When we use seed oils and stuff like that, they gum up our liver, just like they gum up on the top of your vegetable oil, that gummy yuck around the rim. Yeah, that's what they do to your liver and your veins, your triglycerides. All that is so hard to fix when you had a lifetime of corn syrup, bad oils, and stress. Sugar, I should say, but high fructose corn syrup, the worst. So your liver, your labs might look fine, but that does not mean your liver is fine. Okay. So let me show you my Dutch test. Now, keep in mind, this is a couple years ago, and I'll have to be humble and show you my results and when I retest, which I need to do. I'm going to order a kit today. If you just jumped on, October is my birthday month, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we're talking about a few tests that you can do really early in the stage of the game to know where your liver health is at. This and a stool test. So when you do a stool test, I'd have to dig back too far. I didn't prep that to show you guys my old stool results. And that I have done a couple of different ones because gut health is so important to everything that we do, to preventing cancer, to all of it. Our gut is so important. If we're not digesting, then we already talked about how depleted our foods are in nutrition. But then if you can't digest it, your body struggles even harder to get what little nutrition is left in these foods. So I will get back to that stool test portion of things a little bit later. So myself, again, history, this is my test from a couple years ago. Some things that are important to know is I did have a hysterectomy before I knew any better, and that was in my 30s, maybe 40s. I honestly don't remember. It was about 13 years ago. And another thing that I had done, because I didn't know any better, when I was 22, I had a tubal ligation. And now I definitely believe that that is a major blood supply. Like, when you cut those tubes, when you tie those tubes, I think you start to lose estrogen a lot faster. And that, I don't have studies to prove it or anything like that. It's just what makes sense to me. And I would be interested to know how many people, what the tie is, like how many people that had a tubal end up having a hysterectomy. Because I think it changes things. I think it really changes our hormones, well, more than I realized anyway. Maybe you all are way smarter than me on that, but things that I didn't know. This Dutch test, you can see there, it's 18 pages long, so there's a lot of information. This first page is when we add the saliva portion to it. It tells us about our cortisol levels and um, rise and falls throughout the day, like, and you can see I bottom out in the afternoon. That's kind of where you lose energy and you lose your motivation during the day. But we're not going to focus on that. I'm going to jump to this. All this stuff is like super confusing when you get the test back. Like, that's, I'll sit down with you and help you figure it out. If you'd like to order a Dutch test, you can do that off my website. I have a tab that says tests and affiliates. And this test, it comes from a company named Rupa. They're kind of like a Walmart for lab tests. And I have a link, and the company, you pay the company, not me. They'll send the test right to your house. If you're cycling, there's very specific directions that you need to follow in order to give whoever's helping you, or me, however that turns out, the best shot at interpreting the results. If you're cycling, you want to be really specific. For me, not having a uterus, when I did this test, I had no idea. Like, when you take out your uterus but leave your ovaries, you are still cycling. You just have no idea really what's going on. I've come to believe that most women are either ovulating or menstruating with the new and full moon, depending on where you fall in. That's, if you're working correctly, in my heart of hearts, that's how I believe it should be happening. Just like there's a moon change every 28 days, people who say, I'm regular, I follow the calendar, same week, same day, then that doesn't make sense to me because of the moon cycles. Some months are longer, some months are shorter. So, to me, that doesn't make sense. Either they're not paying that close of attention. There are a lot of apps you can use to track your cycle, but anyway, you more than likely, even without realizing, you are following that the moon cycle, new moon or full moon. Tomorrow is the full moon. And I personally think that I would probably be ovulating on the full moon. I think. I don't know. So anyway, without that sign, that cycle, that bleed, you just don't know where you're at. This is your hormone triad. Like, your pregnenolone is kind of at the top. Your DHEA is at the top. Your DHEA is made by your adrenals and is important for your sex hormones, is super important for your stress response, for those hormones. So your DHEA, mine is super low, and that's not normal. It's normal to be lower in your 40s, which I was, maybe 50 when I took this test. Right, probably right at 50. I'm going to turn 53. So, and it was a couple years ago. So it's normal to be lower in your DHA, but we shouldn't be this low. So, right away, your adrenals and your thyroid are super connected. Like, even if you're on synthetic thyroid medication like levothyroxine, it says right in the package insert that is contraindicated to be on that medication if you have adrenal insufficiency. But nobody ever tests you for adrenal insufficiency. It's just so I've never been on thyroid medication, but it would mess up my adrenals even worse if I was, because I've got some adrenal insufficiency. Now it's going to be interesting when I retest to see if this is up. I haven't really taken DHEA or wild yam. DHEA supplements or wild yam are something that a lot of women my age or any age can benefit from. It helps right here. It helps boost this DHEA. So I think of that as like a crutch. So like just like if you sprain your ankles and your ankle is swollen and it needs to heal, the doctor would put you on crutches in that time to support your body so your body can heal, right? So that's how I do use DHEA supplements. I do um, make recommendations from that for time to time, especially if someone's in like a fatigue crisis. But I hope that they don't have to stay on the DHEA. I hope that we can get their body detoxified and healing so it's making DHEA, right? That's the goal. Over here with progesterone, we don't, this is a kind of a guess. We need to measure that in blood. So these metabolites we can see in urine, but not the progesterone itself. So mine you can see super low. So yes, some wild yam, some DHEA would probably make me feel stronger, would make me feel a little bit more energetic. And we do these Dutch tests for men and women as well. It's really good for men to know what's going on with their hormones. Men have estrogen, they have pregnenolone, they have DHEA and then testosterone. So it's good for men to know as well. And the results gives us a man's averages, right? So in the DHEA, your adrenals, then that's going to go down here and your body's going to either use it or lose it in a sense. Even here for not having much DHEA, my body is trying pretty hard. Then testosterone, like zilch. So that as even women, we start to lose our strength. We start to lose our energy. We start to lose our drive. So that no doubt. Like I was feeling pretty poor when I took this test. I feel at least 80% better than I did a couple years ago. So it's going to be really interesting to retest. I could have, should have retested even every 6 months to every year, but even me with access to all this, it just gets it. You're always pulling out of your pocketbook, and so I didn't feel the need really to retest because I knew I felt better. So I was kind of going by my body, my energy levels, my feeling. I just know I feel better. So I'd be super surprised if this doesn't look better, but my brain, I just didn't feel it was necessary at the time. So no testosterone. So then this right here, this aromatase pathway, now my body is going to take this hormone here, the top tier, and it's going to decide how it gets metabolized. So the estrogens here made by the ovaries, as we get older though, you can see we're still getting some estrogen from fat cells and from your adrenals. So, and sometimes in menopause, that's why it's harder and harder to lose fat, because your body sees it as a valuable commodity. So you can see over here, my estrogens, this one is really low. The purple is the where you would expect you to be after menopause. So this also tells me that even though I don't know where I'm at, I am still making, or there is still estrogen there, right? So my ovaries haven't quit on me entirely, and there are multiple estrogens. The term estrogen is a like umbrella term, but there's multiple different types. You can see there's E1, E2, E3, and those are the ones that we have here. And then, so it's going to tell me these estrogens, and then it's going to tell me what pathways. So, like right in through here is representative of your liver. And now my liver is going to decide what is going to happen, how it's going to methylate, where these estrogens are going to end up over this pie chart. So this green represents this healthy estrogen metabolism. This red one, for mine, that's way bigger than I want it to be. This average is 7.5 to 11 is expected. This red pathway, when you're metabolizing your estrogens too much down that red pathway, that's where the DNA damage happens. That's the precursor to your estrogen driven cancers. So like here, this was a wake up call for me. Like this is too big. But all of this can leave you scratching your head, because I have a client, she had actively had breast cancer, has breast cancer, is, in that mitigation, is, watching things. And her Dutch test, this was tiny. This red was barely there. So no matter what, all these tests that we do can still just leave us puzzled, because the body is that intricate. And anybody who claims to have it all figured out, beware. There's no way. The good Lord is too big and too vast. There's no way that we can have it all figured out. Then this pathway down here tells us more about our liver. This COMT, C-O-M-T, there's a COMT gene. There's this COMT pathway. So my methylation activity over here was actually pretty high, which surprises me, because since I have taken this test, I have taken other tests, and I know that I carry that MTHFR gene mutation, and that can all play into how your liver functions and if you can clear these hormones. So another test that I had taken around the same time I mentioned earlier was a stool test. And in my stool test, there is a marker called beta-glucuronidase. And we need that kind of in the middle, but mine was way over in the red. When that is way over in the red, that tells us that you have got an estrogen dominance issue, that estrogen is not clearing your colon. So estrogens, they have to get out of us. So like later in life, that's why this Dutch test is so priceless, because we can do blood as well. We can see how much estrogen we're making, but there'll be a lot of times when our blood level says that we're barely making any estrogen. That's what mine says. I did the blood level as well. But over here, there was still quite a bit of it. And then I had that beta-glucuronidase that was super high. That tells me that my estrogen is not clearing out of my colon. So the estrogen, if it doesn't clear out of your colon, it gets recycled through your bile, and I call it dirty estrogen. So there is kind of this confusing test. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, the results are intimidating. Even trying to help a person sort through this and figure out what to do about it once you know can be intimidating. But for me, the first line of attack is to detox, is to clean up your liver. Some of these will definitely tell us a lot about insulin resistance as well when these things are jammed up. I have this really fun guide, and that helps me to figure out like what herbs that we can use to help push these pathways over to the healthy pathway, like that one that was in the red and so high on me. Things that can increase that, that make it bad, like mine was bad, are chronic inflammation, smoking cigarettes, and your endocrine disruptors. So, like your bad chemicals that we always talk about in your plastics, in your things that you're using on your skin, those things, and things that we can do to reduce that pathway to try to open it up. There are supplements you've probably heard of, like DIM or IC3 or resveratrol. Those are all very good things to help open up that liver and move those out. But sometimes it takes more than that. Sometimes we need a bigger detox to really work on that liver. And why is your liver jammed up? Those things like we talked about. If you don't methylate B vitamins, or if you have a folate issue, or if you're jammed up because, like me in my 20s, I lived on Diet Coke, stress, and junk food, like Doritos, you know, just all of that stuff that we eat, the Doritos, even your chips and salsa, all that stuff has got those bad fats in it that are going to jam up your liver, add stress, and pretty soon you have PCOS or you have hormone issues. That isn't the problem. That PCOS, there's an insulin issue. If there's an insulin issue, there's a liver issue. If there's an acne issue, there's a liver issue. So all of these things, let's see, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to my screen. So all of these things just, they lead right up to one thing after the next. And it started small. Some of this we inherited, like especially me, I was the firstborn. That firstborn baby, you inherit your mother's toxic load. So, like all of those things. If you're breastfed, if you're soy fed, formula, that sets up hormones to be out of balance. So when I was young, I didn't know any better about any of this stuff. I just feel really, really count your blessings every day that my kids, they turned out pretty decent and weren't vaccine injured. And my daughter, though, she kind of started this walk with me when I did. And she was just getting to that age where she was thinking about a family and thinking about getting married. And what drove her to asking for help was her acne. Her acne just kept getting worse. She had some in high school, then throughout college, just kept getting worse. And she was cystic. She was just super, super flamed up. And she was told, she wasn't even, I don't think she was even sexually active, but went to the doctor for help, went to the doctor for that routine visit. And they didn't even draw labs. They didn't even look at her blood sugar. They didn't even look at her insulin. They just told her, and she had irregular periods. She was not getting a period, kind of behind, but for her, really flat chested. She didn't have the big estrogen dominant looking chest like her mother, do. But it's just so amazing that she got this knowledge at such a young age. And when I did, she did a Dutch test, but her results were skewed because lo and behold, she was pregnant. But she really thought she would have a hard time getting pregnant because of her irregular or non-existent cycle. So she was told right there on the spot, you have PCOS. We can give you some metformin. We can put you on birth control. Just and I knew enough. I had just started. I had only heard Dr. Flynn from the Wellness Way talk. I had not really started the academy at that time. But there was like, no, I at least had heard his hormone perspective. I was at least like, no, we can do this differently. Like, hell no, my daughter, you do not need to go on metformin. We have other answers. There is other help. You do not need to go on birth control. There is other answers. There is other help. So, then, it's hard for pregnant and breastfeeding women. They can't really do this detox stuff. They can't really do that. But they can eat healthy. They can watch their sugar. So she went all in and just did an amazing job modifying her diet. An amazing, amazing job modifying her diet. She did find some safe, just like an herbal tea to drink through that. And she herself, she'll tell you, and she was just an overachiever. She absolutely ran high school. She was gone all the time. She was in everything. The class valedictorian. She ran on stress, potato chips, and chocolate, and that just gums up your liver. And then, unfortunately, I fed her formula. I didn't know any better. My toxin load she inherited from me, and just not being breastfed. So she had some major strikes against her, like with her health, those that she inherited from me, unfortunately, those things that we cannot do anything about, we cannot change. Um, we can only try to do better. So she did then in her pregnancy, they really scared her. Her blood sugar was getting up there, and she was getting that prenatal diabetes because of her liver stress, because of her insulin resistance. So, but she didn't get afraid. She got educated and she took control of it, found out that her body needs her to exercise to bring that blood sugar down. And she just did an amazing job. So I'm saying all that in this video because every day, every week, somebody walks in with a history of PCOS. PCOS is so common. Why? Why is it so common? Maybe because we're going to the doctor more, but we can clean up PCOS. Like, we don't have to get attached to these diagnoses and just assume that this is how the rest of our life is going to be because of these diagnoses. Maybe I had that too. I don't know. I never went to the doctor. When I went to the doctor and ended up with a hysterectomy, at that point in my life, I thought it was my bladder. I just always felt like my bladder was not emptying. And then I was bleeding. Like, my cycles were that whole, you think you're going to die, and embarrassing at, you're in your 40s and you're having to take extra clothes to work because you never know what's going to happen. So I did have that going on. Then I was super anemic. Maybe because of my cycle, but mostly I think because of parasites. I had that thing where I bought bags of ice. I chewed ice every day, all day. I went through a bag of ice probably every couple of days. And that's that iron deficiency. I was anemic, the bleeding, but now I absolutely believe it was parasites. I don't think it had much of anything to do with my bladder or my hormones. So, what you don't know, right? It's all hindsight. It's all our own in experimentation, and that's the best place to practice is on yourself. So there again, breast cancer awareness. From what I personally was going through with my own health, I had some major the symptoms in our body are simply our body trying to talk to us, like a toddler without words. Those symptoms are your body trying to get your attention, trying to tell you something's got to change. Like, we need to talk, right? So the things that I had going on in my body were bad. Like, were really bad. I had myself so set up to have some sort of cancer by now in my life. Other tests that we can do that are super easy to test for, there's blood markers for female cancers, for colon cancer, for liver cancer. When I set my blood off today, I sent off a set of female cancer markers. I think there was 5 different markers. Those are not a diagnosis. I don't diagnose myself. I don't diagnose anybody else. But if those markers are up outside of the normal parameter, that then means I need to make a decision about how I'm going to handle that. If I'm going to go to the medical realm and do some further investigating, or if I'm just going to take more dog dewormer, like that's up to me. But having that number lets me make that decision. So, like a CEA, that is indicative of colon issues or colon cancer issues. So, I pulled that on myself. I pulled that time to time over the years, and it has never been elevated. But that number can be elevated if you've got rapidly growing tissue anywhere. That doesn't mean that it's cancerous if it's elevated, but that means that you probably want to look around deeper at some other things. There's a couple of different lab markers, blood markers that you can look at for cancer in breast cancer. So I pulled that. That little test, like when I just paid cash for it, was I think $115 or $130 or something like that. So for peace of mind, that's pretty cheap, right? I didn't have to go to a specialist. I didn't have to do, anything crazy. I'm just going to pull it, see what the numbers are, and then I decide. The same for you as a client. You can just pull it. You don't even have I don't have to do anything to help you other than to hand over the information, and then you decide. It's not up for me to tell you then what to do with that information. It's up to you to decide what you would like to do with that information. The stool test, if you've got crazy digestion, or if you've got cystic breast tissue, like if you get sore cystic breast, that to me is a lymph issue, and it's a dirty estrogen issue. So, I mean, we can talk about that all day too. We're going to wrap up this pretty soon, but so another thing that I've been through that you just don't realize. Every January I do I'm going to push it. Uh, every day or every year I try to push it longer, but I do a water fast. And when I did my first, I think I made 4.5 day water fast. Then a couple months later, I had just engorged breasts for months. It lasted for months. Why that happened was that deep cleaning in my liver. It released a bunch of dirty hormone that had been stored in my liver, and my body just needed time to process it and to excrete it. So, yeah, and even blood sugar. Like when you do an extended fast, it makes your body go deep into that stored reserve in your muscles and in your liver and all those places. So I don't think that a person should do that more than twice a year, should not fast that hard. And for women, just quick throw it out there. You need to know about how to fast for your cycle and where you're at in your cycle before you go doing anything like that. My favorite resource for that is Dr. Mindy Pelz, Pelz. She's got a book called Fast Like a Girl. Like the Wellness Way, my training, he does not like fasting like that for cycling women. And I do believe that that's true. I think cycling women need to be very careful with how and when they fast. But I do think if you've got autoimmune disease, you're struggling with getting your liver health where you want it to be, and you have trained for it. Like nobody should just drop into a fast like that without training for it, meaning you're intermittent fasting, you know what you can handle, and you don't have, well, I have in a sense insulin issues, but I can get away with fasting like that for whatever reason. My body lets me do it. But while you're doing a long fast like that, you're going to check your blood sugar. You can check your ketones if you want, but your blood sugar for sure. And you can can have somebody like me guide you, or you're gonna be careful about it, especially if you're cycling. I had one evening when I was doing that big fast, my blood sugar was down. I can't remember now if it was just in the 50s. I think it might have been in the 50s. And I went to bed like that. And I'm like, I'm going to see what my body can do. And I made it through the night, and it was still low in the morning. And I did just have I think a good fat. I think I just did some butter that morning, and I kept going. And it was all right. It My body handled it. Another thing that you can do, a resource that I have is on my website under affiliates. There is a continuous blood sugar monitor company that I'm affiliated with that we can get access to. So if you've got PCOS and you are wanting to clean up your liver and you want to know what's going on, there is a blood sugar issue. If you've got hormone imbalance, we've got to stop worrying so much about our hormones and start balancing our blood sugar and taking care of our digestion as well as detoxing. But like, I wore that continuous blood sugar monitor for a few months just to see what was going on. My A1C has never been rogue. My insulin stays on the lower end. So those are good. My leptin, though, is too high. And I know I still don't have enough stomach acid. All that plays in. But when I was wearing my continuous blood sugar monitor, I always keep my phone out in the living room at night. So, again, hormones, night sweats, that's not always your hormones. There's a good chance that's your blood sugar. I don't get night sweats. But during the night, my phone would just be alarming, would be going off. And so if I go then and see to shut it up, it's my blood sugar is low. It's dipped into the 60s or into the 50s during the night. It doesn't wake me up. I would have never known that if it weren't for that continuous blood sugar monitor. But that maybe would have been a time when I was just not sleeping good, or woke up, you think you have to pee, or you're having the sweats or something. If that is going on, I encourage you to just get a cheap blood sugar tester. The testers are cheap, the strips are not. But start testing your blood sugar if you're getting those night sweats. When you wake up, you're up anyway, poke your finger and see what your blood sugar is. Maybe it's way too high. Maybe it's way too low. Maybe it's not your hormones at all. If that's the case, then start testing before you go to bed, start testing right away in the morning, and start testing when you get a hot flash or a hormone flash. Start testing your blood sugar. So the hormones, everybody wants to talk about hormones. Women love to sit around and dish about their hormones, but they always bring cookies or baked goods or a sugared up coffee to the conversation, right? So that is big deal. Sugar is a big deal. We want to blame our hormones and our cycle for everything, but nobody wants to talk about balancing their blood sugar. So it's all connected. It's absolutely all connected. And the dots are going to be connected different for different people. The dots are going to be connected different for you in different stages of your life, in different stage of health, in different stages of disease, in different developmental stages. As your hormones start to go away, that is a natural process. The Lord designed us to become hormone depleted at the end of our life, at that last third or whatever of our life. That is natural, right? So that it shouldn't be a terrible roller coaster if your liver is in a good place, if your adrenals are in a good place, if your thyroid is in a good place, if your pituitary and your hypothalamus is not calcified. That should not be a tragic thing. Bone loss and all that, that should not happen. The Lord did not design us that way, right? And then I could get into, I've really become skeptical of vitamin D, especially at high doses. I'm a fan of the sun. I'm a fan of avoiding seed oils. And I absolutely do not think the sun causes skin cancer, but that synthetic vitamin D, we need sunlight. I'd rather go to a tanning bed than take vitamin D. So might be some comments about that or some controversy about that, but that's the truth. The Lord designed the sun. Well, we are questioning that these days, unfortunately. What's going on with the sun blocking and whatnot, but toxic skin creams, he did not design. GMO seed oils, he did not design. Tanning beds, obviously, he did not design, but there is benefit in the sun rays. If you are a fan of vitamin D, please make sure you've got the K2, because if not, I'm going to say this. There's been a lot of social media talk about it, and I looked it up. You can look, and I've got vitamin D on the shelves, and there's a time and place for everything. There's a season and a reason for everything. But that synthetic vitamin D, that chemical, is the same chemical in decon rat poison. I know, I'm just going to let you chew on that for a minute. And what it does in rats, of course, you're high dosing it, but it displaces the calcium and it causes them to dehydrate, right? Kills them by whatever mechanism. So that is why everybody says you got to have the K2, you got to have the K2. We know this. Whoever is behind it knows that the K2 helps that calcium not become your enemy in your body. You need the K2 to help mitigate the displacement of that calcium. It's still probably going to pull the calcium from your bones or where it's supposed to be, but the K2 helps so your body doesn't put that calcium somewhere it shouldn't be. We don't want our organs calcified. We don't want our ligaments calcified. Your body uses calcium in a scarring process, and like even your veins, if they're getting calcified or stiff, sometimes you got to look back on that high dose vitamin D, or if you've been taking vitamin D without the K, like it's just all, it's so complicated. It's all so complicated, and it can just really paralyze us, leave us in a place where we just feel like we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. So no matter what, my best advice to myself, I'll always say I'm a hypocritical health coach, but I got to get back on it. I thought I was doing 80-20. Some days it's more like 60-40. I got to go back to 100%, right? So 100% easy, cheap thing that we can do to help our bodies prevent cancer is to mitigate inflammation. When we mitigate inflammation, we have to work on our guts. Our gut health has got to be a priority. When our gut is inflamed, when our body's inflamed, our immune system creates a reaction. Just like I want you to think of a scab on the outside of your body, right? When you get a cut on the outside of your body, if things are right, if you keep your dirty fingers off of it, you keep it covered until the scab is there, it should heal. You don't need more vitamin D. You don't need more vitamin C. You don't need more sleep. Your body will just take care of it if there's not interference. But if you are constantly picking it, if you introduce bad germs from your dirty fingers and they get inside there, then you can easily disrupt it and cause infection. What does that infection look like? It gets hot, it gets red. Will it still heal on its own? It might. It might. Your body might still take care of it. You might get a fever. A fever is your body's way of killing microbes. It raises your body temperature so it can kill microorganisms that cannot live at that temperature. That's why it does it. But we want to mitigate it. We don't like having a fever, so we squash it. Now we just slapped the body's hands and said, your ways, you don't know. You got to listen to me. I want Tylenol. I want ibuprofen. I don't want to have this fever. So if we would just leave our bodies alone, and let our body do its job, things would improve, right? So we're talking about that scab, we're talking about the outside of your body. And if you keep picking it with your dirty fingers or with things that are annoying it, eventually you might get infection and you probably will get a scar. Now, the same thing is going on the inside of your body where you can't see it, these inflammatory foods. So, I used to, in my practice, pretty much anybody who walked in the door or sat down with me, I was going to try to get them to do a food allergy test, an IgG food sensitivity test, because that's what the wellness way trained me to do. That's what they really believe. And it still is appropriate. I'm not saying it's not, but why it works is then we know what's leaking through your gut into your blood. We know what proteins your body is reacting to. Now I ask everybody who walks in my door and sits down to do this thing that I'm going to tell you to do. You can go on my website under membership, and there is a printout that you can, no charge, it's a free gift to you. You can print it out. But I ask everybody who walks in to just simply avoid the top 7 inflammatory foods. Where we get this list from is the thousands and thousands and thousands of practitioners like myself, like the Wellness Way, who are doing food sensitivity testing. And these are the most common things on everybody's list. So I just ask people while they're doing, if somebody's doing my 4-month minimum foundational level detox, I ask them to 100% avoid these 7 foods for those 4 months, for 120 days. And that just expedites their healing so much faster because we're reducing the inflammation. We're healing the gut without 5 more expensive supplements too, right? So the 7 foods, 1, sugar. Now that's technically not tested. We just know it's inflammatory. So sugar and sugar alcohols, number 1. Next, gluten. You guessed it, gluten has got to go. Then eggs. A lot of people don't like that one. Eggs, peanut, corn, dairy, of course. A lot of people don't like that one. And soy. Those are small proteins. They leak through your broken mucosa in your gut, get in your bloodstream, and all day, every day, your immune system is picking that scab, trying to heal that. It causes an inflammatory response. Just like on the outside of your arm, if you could see what that looks like, red and irritated when you're picking it, that's what these foods are doing to the inside of you. So we just ask you to avoid those so your body can get into a state of healing. It expedites your healing process. It expedites your detox. So that at a minimum. And you can just start avoiding those foods right now. And a lot of times we say an 80-20 relationship with those foods. The Wellness Way is none, 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 none. You stay away 100%. Your body does not know a little bit. Your body can't tell. It can't mitigate a little bit to a lot. So it all kind of depends on where you're at. Honestly, when I used to do that, operate that way, people just didn't come back. Like what I was telling them to do was just too hard. It was too hard. When we do food allergies right away, when I first did my food allergies, I had 30. I think my husband had 33 things on that list not to eat. 30 things. So, yeah, all those things that I said were on there. Yeast then is a big one. Everybody's got yeast. We don't usually crack that until a few months in, but 30 things. So, yeah, I know that list of 7 things sounds stressful, but what if I give you a list of 30 things? So it makes those 7 look pretty good, right? So that's stressful. The healing process is stressful. Trying to do things different and change your habits is super stressful. So I need to get, I'm supposed to be on TikTok. I'm late. I talked way too long. So If you are here, I appreciate it. If you're on the replay, I appreciate you. Like and comment and share this video out. This is my different perspective on cancer, and it's the pre to the pre to the pre of what we need to do for prevention. It's a big deal. If you would like lab work done, I talked about the Dutch test, I talked about stool test, and then there's blood work. The blood work, you'll have to get a hold of me for. I don't have a way to order that in a handy little online thing. So you'll have to order that. You have to get a hold of me to order that. You can use 100 different ways to get a hold of me. If you get yourself over to my website, you will find me. The Dutch test you can order, the stool test you can order. They're ready to go. I do there's a couple of different links for like the stool test. I personally prefer the Designs for Health, and Designs for Health also has the genetic test, like if you want to know if you've got any rogue genes like the MTHFR or the COMT genes that are adding to your body's difficulty in healing. Those rogue DNA SNPs just make healing a lot more difficult for you. I venture to say most people with autoimmune disease probably have some of those rogue DNA SNPs. And you don't have to know, but knowing does kind of help you know how to supplement. Those kind of things you kind of really probably are going to need supplement support outside of just food is medicine. So, all right, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks again. I appreciate you all being here. And I'm going to jump over to TikTok, probably have about the same conversation over there. I just wish I could stream them both, and I can't. So, thank you. I plan on doing this every Wednesday at this time. So, share it out. Get in the routine of following me. If you're local, Thursday is the full moon, and we will be doing a meeting here at the store for the Created to Heal movement. We're going to have kind of the same conversation, and I'm going to treat the whoever shows up to a foot bath. So I'll provide the solution. You just need to bring a container that your feet will fit in and show up at the store at 6:30. See you then.